come to know and love here in Korea. Still sticking around with us. Jin Air staying in the LCK was good for that brand. So let's see how we do go into this big map.
SK Telecom T1 versus the Jin Air Green Wings are on patch 911, third day of the first week of LCK Summer. Let's see if we have the pick ban trends that we've had on the first 2 days also reverberate here. Because yes, Jin Air is playing for the second time, but they're the first repeat team. It is SKT's first time on the Rift, and it always takes a week and a half for the meta to really become repeatable game on game.
Still waiting for Yuumi. I want to see that to come in here. It is, of course, very strong, but Sejuani, another incredibly strong pick.
With 3 jungle bans, maybe the wait's getting shorter. Jin Air's turning the heat onto SKT. Will they blue side ban Yuumi? And they will. There you go. A bluff is being called. First shot from Jin Air. I like to see it. The reason why we say that is that, of course, first pick Yuumi would have been available for SKT. Yeah. They don't want to see it, so they don't feel ready to first pick that Yuumi.
I suppose it is still relatively new, and SKT would have been one of the teams to come in here and maybe take a break when they come back and have a little bit less practice on the pick. We did have the Aatrox get taken away. We saw a little bit of the weakness in that lane from the Aatrox the last time around, but you give Faker his rise, and you're feeling pretty good for T1.
Against a team like SK Telecom T1, you pick your poison, Valdez. You get the cat out of the way, you feel good about that, but there were so many of those flex champions that dominated the 2019 MSI meta available, and actually...
we're flying through this.
Exactly. 2 of them are being lapped up, and SKT has a very MSI-esque draft already.
It's not the first time you've said that either, Papa Smithy. A couple of these teams kind of just saying, hey, not much has changed. We're going to go with a very similar kind of feel. Another one of those champions that we have seen a lot is Silas. He has been just ever super strong nowadays, and you saw that SKT was going to pass over that one.
The Nautilus red side has been almost every red side team has taken either first round Nautilus or even just in the first 2 picks, right, on red side. Reason for that is still can flex into mid lane and is one of the strongest possible supports. So you lose nothing taking a Nautilus, and the best thing about it being both a support and a mid lane is what does Nautilus always provide in every role? Engage. So the fact that one of those ever-present champions and flex picks is also a primary engage tool makes it just such a core red side champion. So happily picked up here, might be used to just neutralize in the mid lane, but more commonly is a support pick.
So we're going through some of the other bans here. We have Morgana and Zoe taken off the table. Grace, if you will remember, that is one of his things that we always like to remember for that player, that he sometimes loves to pop off on the Zoe, so I like that ban.
You just know SKT is going to pick Ezreal Tahm Kench if it's available, because everyone else is going to dive in and Ezreal is going to be Ezreal. It's Teddy's Ezreal, so I feel like Jin Air is well aware of that as well, and the Ezreal priority has been kind of higher than we might have first expected in LCK Summer. Still a very, very flexible pick where you can go down a lot of build paths. See how SKT respond. Still looking for definitely an AD carry from Jin Air, and then could be a support, could be a mid laner.
Interesting to see that Galio ban come through too. Nautilus kind of taking the place as that big engage.
A coverage plan against Ezreal Tahm Kench is banned away. Surprise.
And, well, it seems that you have a good read on it, Papa Smithy, but the Jin Air Green Wings, do they have a read? They have the ability to take away the Ezreal if they want to here, but otherwise SKT will just say thank you very much and go with what they're handed here.
If they're happy to play a Sivir comp, then you don't necessarily have to play AD carry. They just take Xayah straight up, and it could be Xayah Rakan and that mid lane Nautilus that we were wondering about. Here's the Ezreal Tahm Kench lock-in.
Should we just wait for it? I don't feel like there's anything else to really say here. Although he is holding on that Ezreal for quite a while. Yeah, you would have to imagine that at least the Ezreal will be picked here. Maybe thinking a little bit more about what will go along with that pick.
Hey, it's going to be a Braum instead. We're going to go for that flex. That was going to be my second idea, of course. So it's just one of those things where you can stop the feathers with the wall. It can offer you some utility. So a difference of just a little bit on the support pick. Jinair will go with the Nico in this spot. So we'll see which lane the Nico's going into. Your first thought is going to be top lane because Nico has had priority on Ryze more often than it hasn't. If you go the AP build here, you definitely won't be able to push in the Ryze. You can consider the on-hit as well, but AP with Glacial Augment has been by far the most common pick. It's Sylas in the mid lane, and everything filters out, and like we're mentioning, no big surprise, definitely MSI-esque on both sides. I want to see the Nico priority jump up and up. We're seeing it first picked in the LPL very commonly, so it's just left to the end. It's not by any means a hard counter pick, but it is very much a meta champion at present.
Nico feels good, but for the side of Korea, they're still waiting on that one. Faker having a bit of a yawn before this. I hope he is he's ready to go into this one. You never want to take Jinair too lightly, as we're still waiting for that airplane to take off and show us what she's really got.
Is it a glad playing day? Is it a sad playing day? Is always the question to ask with Jinair, but a lot of our fans are here to see their MSI representatives took the eventual winners to 5 games and would have come in at a huge advantage if they had made it to the final. Wasn't to be there. The SKT development plan, it's mostly on track, but maybe not enough for some people to be happy. See how they look in their first game of LCK Summer. It's SK Telecom T1. The moment you see the banner, the minimum expectation is to win the tournament.
They're the team to look out for here tonight, no doubt. But Jinair looking to make an impression on us all, a better impression from their first time they came out. So let's hop into game number 1 right now, guys. SKT versus Jinair. Well, the fan cheers are going to kind of tell the story coming into this one. I feel like about 80%, maybe 90% is filled up with red banners. The SKT win. They have come out in throngs today, whereas Jinair is still struggling to get that going.
And honestly, the T1 fans predictably overfill into a lot of matches. We meet a lot of global fans out here that introduce themselves to us, and very often they're watching matches, and you ask them who their favorite team is. It's always T1 Valdez.
Who's their favorite player?
You know what? It's this mid laner. I forget his name.
Yeah, I think it's Fakar or something like that.
I think your pronunciation's pretty spot on, but I'm not sure if you got the right guy.
Okay.
But SKT, right? Their fame is definitely something that reverberates around the world, and that's why maybe those matches against teams like Jinair are the ones you hope for, because they're the ones you can actually get tickets to. Is the greatest hope there. The runes all over the screen. The matchups, very, very standard ones that we saw at MSI and even before MSI in both lanes. And a confirmation that is Glacial Augment, so it will be the AP Nico in the top lane.
It's good to be back casting some League of Legends. It's been a while for me, Papa. I know you went abroad and did the MSI thing, but as you mentioned, the last time I cast with you was the last time that I did some League of Legends casting. Did a bunch of other games during the downtime.
You were still international traveling, talking about video games. You still living the dream, Valdez.
Doing something, but you know, not the favorite game. If I had to put it down to it, would be League of Legends. But it's good to be back. It feels very natural. You know what I mean, Papa?
It's good to have you back, and it's good to be back in Korea casting SK Telecom T1. I do wonder how SKT fans really feel about their MSI loss, or the fact that they didn't make it to the final there. Top side, Clid, like we mentioned, was looking for him to continue to live up to the now even higher expectations for him as a player. He was, of course, the least known player of the 5 that was put together for the SKT Dream Team, as the Korean fans call them. He was definitely the MVP of MSI, and we want to see him hot and heavy on the map, but actually Malrung is maybe the one that might get the first kill involvement.
Jinair definitely a team that love to get some first bloods and put on the pressure, specifically Malrung. He's seen the whole way. There are a couple of wards, but you can see that the SKT bot lane have to be extremely passive and respectful down here because of that rotation.
But isn't it a nice crisp rotation from Jinair? Not always something we can compliment them on. The mid laner and jungler rotate down bot lane as the grouped minion wave is being pushed into the turret. It guarantees turret plates. Almost 2 go the way of Jinner. They definitely pick up the 1. So, gotta say, like that move from Jinner. It's a practice one. You can see they're putting some of their practice between Spring and Summer into effect. Good little early look at Jinner.
You mentioned how generally there's not a lot of time if you are a pro gamer in between splits because everybody's practicing, and as you mentioned it, Jinner showing off something that they've practiced is always a good sign. They did not take much time off in between the splits here, so junglers going to run into each other here as Clid will find Malrong in the brush. Up a level, but still going for the flash forward, wants to go for the kill. Can they punish Clid here? Malrong still with that flash. He's going to go for the Rise instead. Lots of damage coming out here, but now Clid has his flag and drag back, and you could say they let him have that time to get that cooldown back, and now even Khan wants to get a little frisky. Not going to find the kill.
Khan would have had a kill there if he managed to hit the Q, and auto, I imagine, would have been enough to get down the kill. Malrong was too greedy, Valdez. If they put everything onto Clid, I believe a kill was there for the begging. Instead, the kills go wide. Very aggressive choice from Clid. He had to get away, and he chose to get away in an aggressive manner by trying to go for the gank on the top side. I feel like Clid should have gone down, so kill goes begging overall between Jinner and SKT.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to know the timing on the flag and drag too to know when that Jarvan is going to get out. He just assumed that, hey, maybe we can get the flash at a Rise and the kill out of the Jarvan, but that was absolutely not the case.
If we got a replay, I think the thought was, all right, our mid lane is rotating first, let's get 2. It felt like the greedy look for the 2 kills rather than guarantee the first. End up with neither, and there's definitely been plenty of games against teams like SKT where a lower ranked opposition gets a bit greedy, doesn't get the advantage when it goes begging, and then you can't be so surprised when in the late game that match victory isn't there.
Definitely is about the little things sometimes, and now Malrong returning for a follow-up gank here, but here's Clid again. We'll be able to get that knock-up onto Khan, and there's the big root. First blood will come in for Jinner.
2 times SKT and Jinner have been SKT's debut game in the season. 2 times Malrong has picked up the first blood. Really nice connection and understanding there between Malrong and Linderong. It was in a control ward. It was a very nice play. And SKT's top lane fortunes need a little bit more prepping up, as while Clid has been aggressive, it's been more controlled aggression from Malrong. So far, it's worked out. Watching him here in the control ward, those gank paths are what top laners hate. It's not quite the path from behind the turret, but it very much errs on very much the same playing field. Here are the Jinner fans, or the Jinner coaching staff, I should say. They're Jinner fans as well. Yeah. A polite clap, no more.
Yeah, you know, they're not getting ahead of themselves, and you take a look here, it looks like Grace did have to blow his flash up against Faker, who did blow his Ignite and Ultimate, so Faker getting the win here in the mid lane, no surprise to us.
Nice to see a strong laning phase from his Akali. I was kind of wondering, would you prefer to see Faker on the Rise or Faker on the Akali when the champions were locked in the first round? Now, Faker is one of the probably the best carry Rise of all time. You know, if it's about just his play and min-maxing damage in his lane or in a team fight, you would definitely take Faker on that particular metric. Maybe not the best Realm Warper of all time, so it's a little bit different there, but he's played many different versions of Rise. I would say that the biggest discrepancy would probably be among Khan's champion pool. I'd probably see his Akali a level above his Rise. His Rise is kind of functional. He can lock it in, he can pull off the basic combos, but he's not kind of a super carry Rise player, I think Faker is. So they've definitely got more out of the Akali this time, you would say, and it's good to see the flash blown in the mid lane, but in the top lane, go Glacial Augment, continue to push in, take good trades, and the start has been pretty promising for Linderong.
Yeah, and again, we were highlighting that jungle matchup coming into this game, and we saw both of the junglers return to the top lane over and over again, especially after the flashes were blown. Both Rise and Nico don't have the best escapes in the world. They have okay ones, but you definitely need that flash. And Malrong was the one to turn up and actually get the job done. Even though Clid was heading up there, he did turn up a little bit too late to help out. So that's definitely a +1 in the column of Jinner and Malrong. And take a look at this. He's now down in the bottom lane, helping out this one too.
First rotation from the mid lane as well, denies the blast plant as he returns to lane. So another one of these Jin Air set piece plays that look pretty good. Gray's gonna jump his way over the wall. So far, Jin Air, you know, they're playing a very polished early game, while SKT haven't taken any real kind of mortal disadvantage, only a single death so far in the first 8 minutes. All you can really do is inspect the play from Jin Air. For SKT, they're kind of waiting for core item completions. Akali, different champion after Gunblade. 2-item Ezreal doesn't need any explanation. So this game can still absolutely slide into normalcy the moment that SKT get to those core items, but they're trying to do so in kind of a passive farming way rather than looking to smash and grab their way, snowball their way to those first items.
Whereas Jin Air, a little bit more aggressive here. Let's see how this one goes, though. Clid looking for his first positive gank of the time here, of the game, I should say. But Balrog is here again for the counter gank. In comes Clid. Let's see if they can turn this one around, though. A lot of damage already coming out. And take a look at that. Vada's already down as Balrog just there to help out. But now we got Grace up against Faker once again. A lot of damage coming in. Faker looking for it, but has to ultimate away as his team is going to get the first rotation. That'll just be the +1 to Jin Air again.
Just overrating his tankiness and goes down. He was not, of course, the player that was being sung about by the SKT fans at MSI. Had a pretty poor tournament by his standards after a pretty good spring season, I would say, overall. A bit of a misjudgment there. Grace goes in.
Oh, he's got Balrog here, too, and now Faker's low. Trying to make it work, but Grace already had that ultimate. Balrog even going to be able to pick up the kill, but once again, Balrog now 2-0 and making it happen in this game.
And that was a true KS coming through from Balrog. Usually we talk about sharing the gold, but could have been a solo kill. Not going to happen that time. You'll notice the mechanic makes Linderong pretty good in that matchup, as you can actually have your W tank and overload. We're going to look at the replay. Dismata walks up and overrates his tankiness and goes down. That wasn't Klitsch juggling aggro on the front line. Here's the replay of the mid lane fight. Even though there's a health discrepancy between Faker and Grace, the moment that the stun hits, you can steal the ult. First charge used instantly. It was a trivial kill, and all it was about was who got the kill credit. Goes the way of Malrang.
Yeah, Malrang's, he's like, yeah, thank you very much. I'll be taking this gold. See you later. As you're absolutely right. Grace could have just picked up that kill by himself, so... Overall, I mean, Faker struck the first blow in the mid lane, but then Grace pops him back. A mistake down in the bottom lane. Also, Malrang getting a good start for the top lane. And now Jin Air's ahead by 2,000 gold in game one. This is not what I was expecting to say, Pop.
And sometimes you can really feel a lead. Sometimes that lead's just in the bank. Look at bot lane. Essence Reaver already done for Root, and he didn't even have to teleport back to lane to have that huge item timing. And he's gone respectful. It's going to be a gauntlet rush, and he already has the armor quotient in the inventory. So, yes, Teddy's pretty unkillable now that he has stopwatch enabled and some armor in the build. But there's also going to be very little lane presence. There's 3 turret blades in the bot lane. 1 from the Nico and the good matchup against the Ryze. The game tips when you can have Gunblade Akali rotate into the Nico lane, because there's actually quite a lot of kill pressure in an all-in against that opponent. But as the lane assignments are now, and especially at these item timings, SKT fans at home are going to be looking at the top, and you shouldn't be looking at the 0-3 kill score. This game can change very quickly with those items. Looking for specifically more gold in the game for SKT. When this game hits around 25k gold for SKT, and they're not too far behind, they should be very much in competition.
So Jin Air gonna just hop on over, take Cloud Drake.
As they should.
Not much that SKT can do, and they're gonna be rewarded with an Infernal up next. Maybe they can swing by in 5 minutes before those item timings hit for SKT that you've been highlighting so much.
For that point, and with Sorcerer's Shoes, Faker's trying to find a little bit of power, but does delay the core item. Jin Air should fight right now for everything and trust their items and their scaling points at the moment. Easier said than done, and easy objectives at this point, with no Baron on the map, with Rift Herald for now defending, are there. So they really need to be the first to force things. Doesn't look like they're going to get a Rift Herald charge pre-14 minutes.
Haven't been focusing on that too much. We do have Faker slowly rotating up here towards the top lane, but you can see that Linderong wasn't baited into that fight just yet. Lots of coverage here for SKT, but most of it is defensive, just back in their jungle. You could see that control ward on the left side of the map is not even in the river, so not too much forward vision so far for SKT.
And they understand the predicament they're in. They're very much on the defensive ebb, on the scaling ebb. With the Ezreal Akali rise, you could always tell that the good time's going to roll later than earlier with a draft like this. But against Jin Air, you feel like you have that latitude. And I think Jin Air, week 3, week 4 of spring, you'd absolutely be correct. But I'm impressed that Jin Air, after that 0-2 loss, have been largely on the front foot. They've made some really nice map plays that you can tell they've been practicing in scrims. The coach, when he sees the walk down that got the first turret plate for Root, is like, all right, feeling great about this. Exactly what we practiced. But for Jin Air, when something goes wrong, the cavalcade of the fallout from when things don't go the way they practice is always kind of the most real. You can really feel that effervescent fall off. It really explodes for Jin Air all at once. So for now, it's all good. But you can definitely see a future where SKT outplay Jin Air, and Jin Air don't have that ability to return to the first plan.
You never want to count Jin Air as the winners before the game is over, and you never want to count SKT out before it is too early either. So definitely point made. And take a look here at the gold. Obviously, it is going to be in favor of Jin Air in those plates, as now the junglers look to butt heads again in the top lane. Nobody is going to make that first move, though, as the waves are just cleared.
And this is the game state SKT wants. Everybody's farming, nobody's dying. Is what they want in the early game while those items are still on the way. Cleared the only person who can really impact the lanes, but his first job is no longer kill everyone like it was at MSI. It's back to the spring standard of just try to keep coverage, make sure that everyone's able to push out and farm those core items.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like the scouting report is good, right? When you're going up against Jin Air, no need to rush anything. You don't need to butt heads with them in the early game, especially with a draft like this. Sit back, do your thing, play a better mid to late game, especially because Jin Air struggle with ending it here. But Clit and Khan trying to force it now as the TP is going to come in from Root.
They're not giving this one up without a fight. Remember, the patience on the Rift Herald's pretty long, so it's still leash.
Still leash here. It's going to come down to a smite fight. Getting pretty low. Nobody wants to make that first move, but now Jin Air coming on in. It looks like the Rift Herald going SKT, but Nico flashing in. VODs going to be the first one to go down. And SKT are going to be routed, but you can see that Clid with the blowing glue, purple hands is going to pick up that Rift Herald.
And picking up the Rift Herald with the state the game was in is actually pretty big for SKT. They lost the bot lane turret, but no local gold, I believe, to Root. He had to teleport out. Not sure how the calculation was. Sometimes it does depend on the teleport channeling. Only a single kill, and you could see for sure Jin Air had a big advantage in a proper 5v5 scenario at this item point, but only a single kill. You'll take this one for one if you're SKT.
I mean, we're going to see the big commitments here by Malrang and everybody to just get on in there. Even the flash from Linderong. And at the end of the day, to just net yourself the one kill, you can see Faker gets away, Click gets away. It's not really the best trade overall.
If you rewatch that fight, SKT are using all their mobility cooldowns to provide single targets for Root and then get out of the fight. There was never Root pushing the feathers through 3 members in a front-to-back team fight. This was very much look tasty, get the Herald, and get out.
So it does go according to plan for SKT so far. Still a gold lead that has been slowly growing for Jin Air at this point in time. You were pointing at the 80 carries gold difference. That's 1,500 plus ahead there for Root. So basically half an item already. Feeling pretty good.
One thing to remember as an SKT fan is, we've been talking about weak side champions, the fact that Aatrox used to be able to get no jungle attention, pop his ult, and not die when he's not getting back up the weak side of the map, per se. Ezreal is also a great weak side champion because he's 1,500 gold behind, and yet you look at his items and the break point between Gauntlet Manamune versus the Xayah, who has a much more expensive build, Essence Reaver into full Zeal item, and Ezreal will feel stronger than being 1,500 gold down because he has a cheaper build. That's the other flexibility. A very maneuverable champion, can't be killed even when his bot side is losing, and also gets a lot of effectiveness with not a lot of gold. Kind of the Rumble of 80 carries.
it always feels good to pick Ezreal for that, especially for a guy like Teddy. He hasn't really had too much action in this game, just the one time down on the bottom side and then just sitting back and trying not to die. He's been doing pretty good at that, and now he's just going to sit in the mid lane and farm up. He doesn't have that Tom Kent, but he's still going to be relatively safe overall with the Brawl.
Khan has his first item completed. No Seraph's transformation yet. They want to end this laning phase in the top side. So the Ezreal on the minimap was walking up to try to guarantee this turret take. Will be the first of the game for SKT. They get the charge, but Jin Air defending really well, and no deep vision possibility yet. SKT don't feel strong enough to invade for that vision.
Yeah, their only real ward was this one right next to Klid. Klid now going to aggressively clear out the control ward. As you mentioned, the turret doesn't go down, so still all turrets remain here for Jin Air. Keeping that gold on the map and out of SKT's pockets is going to be good for as long as they can do it.
Root is the only real wave clear here. Silas does a decent job. Nico, of course, not present on the screen. He's going to push out a wave in mid lane. If all champions are A-ramming, or in this case, all top, if it is a 5v5, remember that means that resources are equal on both sides. It means that both sides are getting a bit of gold, but as the better Poke and Siege champion, Ezreal's getting a bit of siege damage in, and SKT are trying to inject more gold into the game. So they're kind of content with the game slowing down to their pace. And you know, for most of Jin Air's history, that's the pace they've played at as well.
Not really fast like a plane like you would expect it to be. Kind of the exact opposite. And I would expect it to kind of go along that pace, even with the Cloud Drake coming up next. They're not going to be going too fast, so let's see if they can actually make it in. You noticed, I think it was C's that was saying in his interview that, you know, they were not very good when it gets to the mid-game and their macro breaks down, but that's going to be a big thing to watch for Jin Air as the game moves along.
And I'm looking at lane assignments. How do you find a way to be competitive against Gunblade Akali at this item break point as either Silas or Nico? It's really tricky. Gunblade being complete poses a lot of headaches. You can steal away the Akali ultimate, but you don't have, of course, that for an unlimited amount of time. It will fade away eventually. And if you ever bait out the Aftershock, there's a lot of kill pressure for Ignite Akali at this point in the lane. So finding ways to curtail Faker in a side lane probably requires friends to rotate up. And that's why Kellen at least puts some doubt into the mind of Faker by taking over the River Brush.
We keep getting an update to who is the richest champion on the map. It is going to be Root still. He is going to be the big carry once again for Jin Air. Things don't really change for Jin Air, do they? It doesn't matter who's in that 80 carry role. He's going to be the guy that they look towards. Although Root many a time has been known for his lane presence and aggression and getting that first blood alongside Kellen. We'll see what he can do here in the late game.
Very reminiscent of Teddy, but not quite the player Teddy was by the end of his Jin Air career. Absolutely tries to be the kind of 1v9 carry player in team fights. He makes critical mistakes, but come on, he's played one split in the LCK. So
he needs more time.
Some very honest development going from him. He's not quite a bottom age player. He's not a 17-year-old player. He had played, I believe, in some squads around the world, but this was, of course, his professional league debut in spring. Came away with an enhanced reputation. He even gets a game win over SKT. That reputation only grows.
Well, a good move by Jin Air to come on over and go for that one. But take a look at this from the side of SKT. They're not going to start the Baron, of course, but they're looking to rotate to mid lane and actually push this one in while Jin Air's out of position. Doesn't look like they'll be able to do it, though, as a nice response does come out from Jin Air.
Gold lead has not grown in this game from where it was in the early game. It continues to be around the 3,000 mark at the moment, 2,300 gold. So SKT, again, happy with where their item spikes are at. Haven't allowed Jin Air to parlay some good aggressive moves into more difficult objectives than the two outer turrets they have so far. The game is still relatively competitive, and now we're getting to the point where SKT try to use their on-point mid-game to late-game macro to choke Jin Air out of the game. Jin Air needs to be in position to fight. They've got some great fighting items, but SKT play the musical chairs and exit with a drink.
It's a windy, rainy day here in Seoul, and, well, we're going to have a lot of Cloud Drakes come out as SKT pick up their first one, but not much else to say about that. The Drakes are going to be about as unexciting as the beginning of this game, just the 4 kills and some good rotations from Jin Air has really been the only thing to point out so far.
You know, I think a lot of people understandably look to SKT to gauge where the LCK is at, because of course they have so long been synonymous with representing the LCK on international stages, but my honest belief is we won't understand the LCK's read on the meta or its development after once again losing an international tournament, the 3rd in a row, from SKT. Because SKT know they can play their style and they'll be up around there when it comes to the end of the season. Will they be first or second? Will they play a semi-final or be seen to the final? Hard to say, but they've got the talent. They've got the results. They won LCK Spring. And I'm looking at the teams playing against teams like SKT and Griffin to show us who's going to try the more fast and loose style, who's going to be aggressive. Kingzone was that team in the spring season, Sandbox as well. So if Jin Air just want to slow it down, SKT will say, we don't have to adjust much from MSI, thank you very much, we'll play slow. SKT started MSI slow and then grew with the pace of the tournament. So I think SKT is going to stick with their own game, and it's going to be the contenders to the top that need to show they're not pretenders, and they can force SKT to change.
Got a little skirmish up here on the top side as Faker and Clid very confident to start this one off, and now Faker gonna get flashed on and dunked here by Grace, who's doing it all alone. Malrong just for moral support so far. Clid is going to flag and drag away, but there you have it. Grace going 1v2, takes down Faker.
Now Faker doesn't have teleport, so do you start Baron to really start ratcheting up the pressure here? That is something that other teams would consider. We're 25 minutes into the game. It's not a 20-minute Baron by any means. But Jin Air now push around mid. How do you get more than just a single kill?
Well, they're looking for some picks here on a Teddy, but they're going to say, okay, we're happy with the mid lane turret. If we can catch anyone alongside of that, that would be great. But how about just that one? So it's the kill and the mid lane turret. That's just about it. And once again, Clid and Faker just getting a little bit too frisky up in that top side under the turret. Wasn't expecting Malrong to be there and had to run with their tail between their legs.
But now, how can you set up those sort of smart plays in a forward sense? When you're on the SKT side of the map, you need the deep vision that isn't as relevant when you're punishing an enemy under your turret. So now, Jin Air have the entirety of the 3 turrets. Really nice chase down kill by Grace here. Some good Silas mechanics on display. Feels like LCK Silas no longer a meme like it was for the great majority of the regular season, so it's nice to see some good Silas mechanics. Had some great Silas play over the course of the first 2 match days. But now it's deep vision, Baron set up, try to make it around Baron and make SKT come to you. Those are all more tricky than punishing an overextension. Let's see, we can see Jin Air make some good pressure moves because they should be able to have Nico push out and bot. They should feel strong enough to contest the blue side SKT jungle. But for now at least, they're getting the kill, they're taking an easy objective and backing away. That's not good enough anymore.
Well, we have Root with a pretty nice timing of his own, picks up the Infinity Edge now, and he is going to be very strong once these team fights do get started. We also do have the Guardian Angel already finished for the 2-0-2 Rek'Sai for Malrong. So they have the items, they have the abilities, and the matchups that you were talking about. But can they actually make it happen has always been this sticking question for Jin Air. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen.
So on the one hand, you look at Xayah versus Ezreal and say, oh wait, Zaya's the better 5v5 champion because she can push damage throughout the first target. Ezreal, famously, Mystic Shot is long range, very safe, but he can only hit the person in front of him. In past metas, it's the tank that he doesn't do a lot of damage to, and it hasn't always been where he shined. Yes, Xayah, in what is a front-to-back team fight, should do more damage than Ezreal more often than not. However, when you have assassins and gap close, how often is Xayah got a front line in front of her, peeling for her and auto-attacking? In this sort of a game, with almost no peel on her side, unless the Nico's actually defensively ulting, it's actually very hard for Xayah to maximize damage because the amount of dive champions onto SKT's side are pretty large.
Okay.
You could just make this about a Baron. They're doing this pretty quickly, and SKT's pretty far.
Making it about a Baron. They have that damage out of Malrong and Root. but they're going to back away as they try to find Clid here with that glacial augment, but
that was very early peel from Jin. I think they should have stayed on Baron for longer and got a little bit too much of a cold rush of blood to the head. So they push out again, get nothing from this. They actually lose a turret from their Baron start. Kind of predictable, Valdez. Jin Air have tripped up in their execution in this part of the game many times.
And this is what happens when you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs in the enemy jungle. What's going on here? Now you lose the Nautilus, but actually Clay gonna take an immense amount of damage. Great teleport into the back line, but Zaya, look at that assassin getting on top of her. She is gonna stay alive though, and Mata's gonna go down. Make that 3 now for SKT, who have gone down. Faker has to flash away, but Malrong's getting in there. He's gonna pick up the double kill, and Jin Air somehow is going to win this one and go to the Baron.
The TP play works this time, Valdez. The difference now is the meta has enough engaged. They do find the kills. They do make SKT accountable when they teleport, and this will be Baron, Jin Air Green Wings.
Nothing that Khan can do, has to run away, and that's going to do it. We're going to take another look at this one. It ended up being that teleport play, as you mentioned, with Kellen kind of baiting a ton of that damage.
How many games did Jin Air get into this spot and then not win in spring season? Then think of the champions that are now plugged and played. Nautilus, Nico, hard crowd control, AoE in both. As it starts, Clid goes in to try to be a frontline, and no one can back him up. But on the meanwhile, while Teddy already has some magic resist, he actually gets taken down by Grace. Grace is the better Akali in this team fight than Akali herself. And from there, Jin Air have enough gold. They had a good enough early game, and they have the sort of CC and mobility to chase. They actually pick up the kills.
It's like, I think I got her. And he did. With that ultimate, was able to stick on to the Akali. So good mechanics out of Malrong.
And this is the best possible result, Valdez, if you want to see SKT up their speed, up their aggression. Right now, they thought they could take the back seat against Jin Air and fly through with flying colors at the end like so many teams did in spring. So far, it's looking like the Jin Air punishment and the subtle changes in the meta are enough to make that not the best way forward.
Yeah, Jin Air themselves, they weren't playing this intensely aggressive game. Just a couple of decisions, go for the Baron, keep SKT thinking, and then a wonky fight in the blue side jungle where it seemed like the entire SKT team was in the Zhonya's at the same time doing nothing. And meanwhile, you have this Fed Silas, the Zaya staying alive, doing good damage, the rest of the team winning in a fight that they were ahead in, and, well, Jin Air come ahead.
Somewhere around the world, G2 and their prep for their LCK game are sweating right now. They don't know why. Yeah. We know why. Because Jin Air is looking pretty good, Valdez, and we know they're coming.
I mean, it's, if you can beat the international champions, then obviously you're a pretty good team, right? It's Jin Air. Let's see if they can actually do it here. As Grace stays alive forever with that aftershock, but it is not going to be enough as he does go down. Malrong now trying to get away from this one, as now Linderong's looking to be the big boss here up against Khan. Those Baron minions getting on in there. He has to blow his Seraph just to stay alive.
But SKT actually problem-solved this scenario really well, and Jin Air get baited into fighting on two fronts. They aren't fighting around root this time. It's just the Sylas brawling in mid lane, and Sylas goes down. So 1 for 0 when there's Baron. We're going to watch the replay here. Aggressive Realm Warp, and Grace could have just tried to blow everything defensively, but thinks he has a lot more friends than he does. Gets taken down eventually. Malrong awkwardly kind of watching as they chase onto Grace and pick up this kill. A lot of the gold is still on route, remember, on the side of Jin Air. And you might say it's only a kill, there's no objective for SKT. It slows down the Baron push that Jin Air were on. So the Baron buff power play doesn't balloon to the 3 to 5k territory we see very often.
Certainly should have been a lot more. Once you win a decisive fight into the Baron and then you group up as 5, you're supposed to take objectives. You're supposed to get that power play you were talking about. They didn't get much. I think they got maybe the 1 inhibitor turret down on the bottom side, maybe the inner turret here in the mid lane, but that's about it, and honestly, that's not enough.
They break the base on the first Baron, which, as we've always talked about over history, is pretty good, but I take your point, Valdez. It was going to be an inevitable inhibitor, and it ended up being less than that. Yeah. So SKT able to slow down the advance. Again, the gold lead has never ballooned. 6,000 is 10%, but it's not going to be right now the death knell for SKT, but Jin know they're one more Baron and one more team fight away of potentially a death blow to SK Telecom T1. So nice moment from SKT to stem the bleeding, but that's all they've done.
And as we were talking about before, should be a little bit of a wake-up call for SKT. We saw the yawning from Faker, who is currently 0-3. Don't want to point fingers or anything. I don't think Faker has had a terrible game, but just the way the numbers are working out here. But as a team, definitely have to kind of open this one up a little bit more as we do move into game 2. Jin Air looking to take the lead by winning game number 1 on the push here.
Have a minion wave and can't walk up too easily. Rise, of course, with his Rune Prison makes it difficult for 500 range auto attackers to punish too hard. Got to bring in a second minion wave for this to be more trivial, and that's what Jin Air are trying, but they were caught in their execution around this just a few minutes ago. So they back away, and another push averted by SK Telecom T1.
And just kind of hold their grounds. They get that wide fan going out around the inhibitor, and Jin Air with not the best siege, able to get on in there and not do much. So just waiting on this one. We got Baron coming in 45. We got the Elder, the first of the game, coming in a minute and a half. So things definitely going to spice their way up here in this game in a bit.
Well, you know who's well-fed, fully ready to go? It's Root. He's 6 items already. Went for GA as the 6th item, hopefully, just to be even more aggressive with his positioning. So 500 bounty, Guardian Angel, 6 item build done. Ezreal still working on his 6th item, definitely way behind. Jin Air feeling like a closeout around Baron is their way to go, and that starts with Deep Vision, and then it continues with a Baron bait. Feels like we see step 1 in front of our eyes, step 2 on the way.
Balrog just waiting in the pit. They want to start it right away. 2 guys that do have that Guardian Angel, and you can see True Mirage already comes out here. They know it's happening, but can SKT do anything? They're going to get in range, but it is not close enough, as now Kellen is going to push it around. As Ruto in the front lines takes a lot of damage, gets assassinated here by Faker. Now he is going to be the focal point, stays alive. Has actually some zoning by the Cataclysm for quite a while. First one to go down is Faker, and now Kellen tries to take out that phone. Not quite able to do it there, as the supports are going to be traded, but the Baron still will go the way of Jin Air.
SKT in a bad position, team fight well, but still not enough because of all the sins of the early game, Valdez. Jin Air still find a lot of advantages from it. They're going to break the base in a second spot. 2 inhibitors at minimum.
Let's see how this one does go, because the TP is coming in here from Khan. Is going to try to deny them that bottom inhibitor. Now going to get in there with the Spellbinder, has huge burst damage! And Ruto is going to barely get away, as Khan, just not enough there, not enough damage for the Rise.
Just not enough is putting it mildly. He was an amp tome away from a guaranteed kill. Yeah. But Root is out, and the Elder Dragon is on the Rift. SKT, it's only going to be a denial Elder for them if they get it, and they don't have enough damage around to make it happen, so they get some control. They won't give over a freebie. But SKT can't turn the game, and they don't even get that shutdown on the Rise.
The only thing they really were able to stop was the inhibitor, but you can see that Jin Air have their sights set on the Elder now. Even Linderong still has his teleport. He didn't have to use it in the last one.
Malrong's alone.
Okay, Malrong. This is the way it had to be. As he is all alone here, is going to try to void rush in there, but goes down, as that's a pretty big mistake from our Jin Air jungler, who's going to bite the dust.
And that's definitely a solo mistake from him. Did not read the map situation there and understand that they did not have enough backup to be face-checking to clear wards in the enemy jungle. That's a play you make when there's 2 inhibitors down and there's super minions pushing into the base. You know that SKT can't send out enough members to defend their red side jungle. This time, Minion Wave's one in that spot, so he dies, and that means that Jin Air don't have control around this Elder, and SKT will at least leash it.
We're going to start it up here. You can see that Root used, or rather not, yeah, Root did use his TP the last time around, but he's going to be here, but he's not quite going to be able to do much. Let's see what Grace wants to do, though, trying to start this one against Mata.
Want to see SKT peel off, but they're not gonna.
They're sticking strong here. Grace doing a nice amount of damage. Nice hook there on a Teddy who has to get out of this fight. Now Kellen is going to be tanking up in the front line. That Rise damage is unbelievable from the side of Khan. And that is going to easily push Jin Air away as SKT will pick up that objective.
In a 5v4 without the super minions on the Nexus, SKT held all the cards. No unsealed spellbook to find a smite for Jin Air. So they're able to get the objective, get out. And that suddenly means that SKT have denied an objective that should honestly have been a freebie for Jin Air with the map situation they were in. There should never be a fight, Valdez, at this point in the game with how the early game went, where SKT hold all the cards, but Marang going down and then being able to push out only one super minion wave meant that there just weren't enough variables for Jin Air to pull SKT away from both tanking the Elder and threatening a 5v4 fight.
Yeah, and it just went away, the pop-up on the top right, but that was a negative 300 gold power play. You could call it a penalty kill, basically, as they were behind after getting the Baron. All they got was that mid inhibitor and the turret, and lost a bunch else, so not very good feels for Jin Air.
A different team would have followed the super minion wave mid lane as a 4 and pushed it hard, and then SKT has to teleport back. So yes, you don't get the Elder, but SKT does it easy. You're not going to end the game on a mid lane push, right? Yeah. But you're going to be able to stop the Elder going down. But they kind of allowed SKT to give both options, make the Elder look tasty, and in that moment where you need to have some pivotal, really clear shot calling, Jin Air understandably with their jungler going down in surprise fashion, botch it a little bit, and SKT exit with the Elder. That's just going to be a denial one. It means no double Elder, idiot-proof win condition at 1 hour into this game. It's going to delay the game when it comes to those mindless objectives that can really finish the game almost automatically.
And you look at the lineup of Jin Air and you have to question, who is the shot caller? I suppose it would be Linderong, but he's on that top lane Nico. He's one of those older guys that has a bit of experience, but outside of that, it's a lot of younger players, guys that haven't been in the league for even 1 year just yet.
And at some point it becomes
part of the problem.
Let's have a 5v5 team fight against SKT with all their veteranship. And yes, Jin Air could win that, of course. It is stacked in SKT's favor. 5v5 wise, if we see Root free auto and never ult in the team fight, for sure they've won the team fight. So it's still possible for Jin Air. But SKT have already subverted team fights a couple of times and made 3v3s and 2v2s work in their fashion. The next one's probably going to be around Baron. Third Baron of the game spawns in 30 seconds.
We are getting there, and we're going to have to rely on Jin Air making some good decisions if they want to have a chance in this game. That, again, we were talking about the early game and how they had that nice little lead, but eventually SKT would come online. But then they got that extra team fight into the Baron, and the game became theirs to lose. And unfortunately, Papa, it kind of feels like we're going down that path once again, especially now you take a look at Khan, who's had a pretty nice game after the laning phase, especially on this Rise. He's got, his full build now. He's going to be doing some insane damage that we already saw.
What can the Nico do? Because Rise is going to be reliable. 6-item Rise always does something reliably, but Nico can blow up a team. She can also miss her ult, have it flashed out. So I feel like the Nico holds the difference between a teamfight victory and a teamfight loss for Jin Air. And we can see very clearly the war is just going to TP on.
That's the one ward that didn't get swept here. Jin Air going to be looking for the turn this time around. TP coming in. The Baron is getting low, and they're not pulling off of it, actually. Kellen going to nearly get blown up. Here comes Linderong from behind, and a huge Pop Blossom in that one. But do they have the damage as Khan is going to go down? But so does Grace and Kellen and Linderong. And now SKT can just turn it back. And there's this fight from Clid. Teddy's staying alive in this one the entire time. And it looks like the rest of Jin Air are just going to be hunted down in their jungle.
5v5 ends up being exactly what SKT needed. Root had to flash over the back of the pit. It meant that even though the Nico hit everyone, there was no damage behind it. SKT take their first Baron of the game. They're probably going to break the base as well, and they've certainly broken the hearts of the Jin Air Green Wings.
It's definitely going to feel real bad for them, as this was their game to lose, and, well, it looks like maybe they've just done it. 20 seconds until Grace and Linderong are up here, and SKT Let's see if they continue pushing with the Baron. It looks like they are going to, especially late in the game. Balrog coming on in. He's going to Void Rush, trying to take out Glyn here. Nearly able to do it on the backside, but you can see Kellen's going to go down. The GA as well is going to be popped, and the push will continue. TP coming on in as Linderong and Grace desperately trying to stop the siege that is their base right now. But with so many cannon minions coming in, and as well as the ultimate with all of those minions, Big Pop Blossom again, they're going to take out the Braum. Stopwatch is here as well. You can see Root staying alive, doing that damage in the back line. Gonna try to pop down Khan. He's gonna take him down. Grace doing a bit of tanking so far, but Root still going forward. Has the ultimate to take the double kill, and is gonna keep the base alive for now.
In Root we trust, it keeps them in the game. SKT get everything except the underline on the victory. They're gonna have to back away. This will be our longest game of summer so far, Valdez.
Yeah.
We're already at 44 minutes.
Root's the guy, but let's take a look at how he did in this fight.
So the problem here is that Linderong is late. He needs to teleport earlier. He's about 2 seconds late on the teleport. It means the Baron gets too low, and then Jin Air get nervous. They realize they might just have a 50-50 smite that they didn't want. Root to stay alive flashes over the back of the pit, which means he's not able to combo with Linderong's damage. They chase for further kills here, and because Root is the last person to die, his death timer is 25 to 30 seconds after the other respawns. SKT think they can finish, and there's a world where they do, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Jin Air buy enough time, and when Root does show up, you're reminded that he's been at 6 items for a long time.
This is it, the MVP of Jin Air trying to come on in. You can see that he's just chunking Khan down. He doesn't care what AP damage items he has now. Not the most tanky as, okay, Jin Air gonna be confident to just go for it. We had a ping on the Nexus from the side of SKT.
Remember, they have Realm Warp. G2's done it many times, Valdez.
They're going.
They're going for this
Here we
end.
go, the SKT train trying to get going. As in goes Teddy, Faker, and Khan, Amada, and the rest of them trying to stop them. Here's the Realm Warp, everybody trying to get in range. As Faker gonna ultimate his way to the side, but Linderong trying to stop them here, but it's not enough as Teddy, Khan, and Faker make their way in with the Realm Warp and take game number 1.
From Europe with love, SK Telecom T1 understand the scenario, and you see how different it is when around the world have been in position the least of, wait, we're ahead. How do we win a game? How do we close a game? Jin Air makes the predictable mistakes, and in the end, SKT come up with the victory.
Would have to agree, as we are going to go into it for sure. Into the next one, as 45 minutes here was one of those longer games that we were talking about. You can see the gold difference still in favor of Jin Air, but it didn't matter down to the last moment as Khan led the troops into the base and took down that final last standing Nexus. So gotta hand it to him and Teddy, who ended up doing the majority of the damage in that one.
SKT fans relieved they won, but will be demanding of a better performance in Game 2. This felt like what we saw at MSI. in that SKT were playing to the level of their opponents. They warmed up and got more aggressive over the course of MSI.
Yeah.
They come in here just kind of letting Jin Air do whatever they want. And that was almost to a Jin Air victory in a 10v1 clash.
You can't let any team in the LCK get a big lead on you because you never know what's going to happen. Doesn't matter if it's Jinner, if it's Griffin, if it's SKT. So we'll see if SKT learn their lesson. They end up winning the game at least for game number 1, but definitely a nail biter for this first one that we did have. So after the break, we will be going into game number 2 of Jin Air versus SKT. Jin Air looking pretty good after their game up against KT, but some of those mistakes that for some reason they just can't seem to get rid of. We'll hope that they can fix them.